Hello everybody, welcome back. My name is Alex and today's lesson is all about self-awareness. Now, self-awareness is foundational to the work that we're going to be doing through this course because having self-awareness is key to being able to understand yourself, get to know yourself, to deeply dive into studying yourself. It's important for being able to accept yourself and for being able to find peace in your life. So let's go ahead and get started. So I want to start by defining what exactly self-awareness means. So to have self-awareness means having the ability to observe yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, your reactions, your reasons for making certain decisions, and your reasons for feeling a certain way. Through self-awareness, you can notice and catch yourself when you engage in negative thought patterns, when you engage in bad habits or self-limiting beliefs, when you start to believe mistruths about yourself, and when you start to have an experience with any other self-sabotaging behaviors. Self-awareness helps you recognize all of those things so that you can make an effort to stop them from happening, right? So self-awareness is the first step. When we practice self-awareness, we're able to take a more active role in our own lives, and it's the first step towards building a better relationship with yourself and taking responsibility for who you are and how you show up in this world. Having self-awareness is the first step towards being able to make real, lasting change in your life. So in addition to talking a little bit more about self-awareness, this lesson also comes with a yoga practice and meditation. It's kind of a combined practice, yoga/meditation, that will kind of give you the opportunity to experience what self-awareness is and experience consciousness, which is what gives you the capacity to be self-aware. So we'll do that after this lesson, after we get into the discussion of self-awareness. We'll move to the practice, which is the next video in this lesson. And then after we complete this lesson and after you do the practice that follows this lesson, I really want you to spend some time over the next week practicing self-awareness, engaging in self-awareness, noticing the different things that we discuss in today's lesson. For instance, one thing that we're going to be looking for is negative self-talk. So negative self-talk describes any sort of self-deprecating conversations that you have with yourself about yourself in your own mind. It really defines the quality of your inner dialogue. When the quality of your inner dialogue is mainly negative or self-deprecating, that is when you know you're having negative self-talk. So this includes any self-limiting thoughts, particularly those that contribute to your inability to believe in yourself and your capabilities and your capacity to achieve, accomplish, or do anything in this life. Negative self-talk limits your capacity to reach your fullest potential, and it diminishes your ability to make positive changes in your life. So it's really important to be able to recognize when negative self-talk is happening in your mind, and we will work on how to practice that a little bit through some yoga as we move through this course. So other things I want you to look for as you move through this week is any time that you feel the need to compare yourself to others or practice comparison in your mind. So comparison really it's a bad mental health pattern. It's a negative pattern and it's very limiting as well. So you might notice yourself comparing yourself to others, thinking, oh, I wish I could be more like them. They're so pretty, they're so skinny, they're so smart, they're so funny, they're so this, they're so that. And you feel that they are that way and you are not. And there's this sort of jealousy that happens and this sort of envy, and you wish you could be more like them. Similarly, it happens when you see somebody and you start to kind of pass judgment towards them. You think they're not this enough, they're not that enough, they're not, whatever it is that's coming into your mind about them. And this may be that you think that you're better than them because you have these qualities that they don't have. And this is also comparison. It's just a different kind of comparison. And typically we engage in judgment as the type of comparison when we want to feel better about ourselves. So I just want you to take note when you notice that happening in your own mind as well. We're also going to start trying to notice when we have or engage in bad habits that are related to our mental process or related to the way we feel about ourselves. So for instance, if you go towards junk food or comfort foods when you're feeling uncomfortable or emotionally erratic or emotionally stimulated in some way or another, when you turn to food as a coping mechanism, when you turn to watching TV as a coping mechanism, when you turn to sex, or when you turn to getting attention from others as a coping mechanism. These are things that we do whenever there's something happening inside that we are uncomfortable with or that we don't want to address. We find distractions to keep us busy and to give us a false sense of feeling good. So I want you to notice anytime you're engaging in those types of things, when you're not hungry, seeking food, when you're not feeling sexually stimulated, seeking sex, when you are feeling like you need more attention because you're unlovable, or those sorts of things. Perhaps when you're bored, you pick a fight, or when you start to feel like things are really good, you start to look for all the ways that things are going to start to take a turn for the worse because you don't feel like things can stay good for too long. Just notice these things. Notice if and when they happen in your life and in your own mind, and what sort of things are stimulating those thought processes. Another thing that self-awareness can help us kind of identify, and something that I also want you to pay attention to in the coming weeks, is mistruths that you start to believe. So when you believe something yourself, but you start to deny it or feel like maybe you were wrong because somebody is saying something else. So you trust somebody else over trusting your own self. You trust other people's opinions over your own intuition or your own feelings or your own opinions. You might also start to believe things about yourself that aren't true at all. So for instance, maybe you believe that you're not worthy of something because somebody doesn't like you, or maybe you believe that everybody has to like you in order for you to be worthy, and that's something that's absolutely not true. So these are the kinds of mistruths we can start to believe. The kinds of mistruths that can start to guide us falsely in life. So we start people pleasing and doing things to try to get everybody to like us because we feel like in order to be worthy, in order to have value, we have to have everybody's approval. We have to be liked by everybody. Another example is believing that somebody else's bad mood has something to do with you, that you're the cause of that bad mood. For instance, maybe your significant other is just feeling a little bit low, or they're not engaging with you as much, or you can tell that they're in a bad mood, and you kind of feel inclined to ask, are you mad at me? Did I do something? And that's assuming that you're the cause of their bad mood, when in reality, their bad mood could be because of any number of things, because they are their own person and they have their own lives going on as well. So it's never a good idea to assume that, and I want you to just notice if that sort of thing happens with you, if you believe that if somebody's upset that it's somehow your fault or must have something to do with you. Another common mistruth that people start to believe is that they are their feelings, failures, and mistakes. And that's not true. You are not your feelings. You are not your failures. You are not your mistakes. Those things happen and you experience them, but they don't define you, and they have nothing to do with who you actually are on the inside. So pay attention to if you start to feel really bad because you're in a bad mood, or you're having negative emotions, or you make a mistake, or you fail at something. Just notice. And then finally, another thing that we can start to notice through self-awareness is when we engage in self-sabotaging behaviors. So for instance, you are trying to eat healthier, and then somebody brings cake in at work and you have a piece of cake, and now you're like, well, what's the point of eating healthy? So you start to just eat junk food for the rest of the day. That's a self-sabotaging behavior, one that I have engaged in many times myself. But there are others. For instance, quitting something before you even get started because you're afraid that you won't succeed. Avoiding taking action towards improving yourself or self-betterment because you're comfortable where you are and you're afraid of the unknown. Or another one that I see all the time in people is pushing people away because you're afraid of losing them. And then this is one that is very common, doing unto others as you do not want to have them do unto you. So think about driving in traffic, right? People cut you off, or someone takes a spot really quickly just before you're about to get it in the parking lot. These are the types of things people do to others because they don't want to have them to be done to themselves. So they do it to other people before other people have the chance to do it to them. So pay attention and just notice these are all really interesting things that kind of happen in the background of our minds and in our lives, and we don't really notice when we're engaging in them. But when you activate your self-awareness and start to pay attention, you can start to pick up on all of these things, all of these negative thought, mind, behavior things that sort of start to happen that are really possibly limiting you in your life and your ability to take control of your life and your ability to feel good in your life. So those are just a few of the things that we're really going to pay attention to in the coming weeks. So as we start to pay attention to these things, as we start to notice them, we want to take action against them. So that's the next step. Self-awareness is the first step. The next step is taking action against those things. So actively, when you notice that something is happening, that you're having a negative thought pattern, for instance, you want to counteract that thought pattern. And I'll give you a few examples. So self-awareness is the first step, noticing all of these things, becoming aware that these things exist in our lives and in our minds. And the next step is to actively choose to not engage with these things and, if possible, take an opposite action or act against these things. Do the opposite of what your impulse is telling you to do. This is what's going to help you take your power back. This is what's going to help you change the way that these negative patterns and these negative mental things control your life. It's going to take the power back, and you're going to have more control over your life. Okay, so here's a few examples of how you can do that. For instance, if you catch yourself judging somebody, notice first, right? Activate your self-awareness. Oh, I just passed a judgment against such and such person. Now, what I want you to do after you've noticed that is, in your mind, apologize to yourself first. I'm sorry that I took a judgment against somebody. I'm sorry that I felt the need to compare myself to somebody else. And then apologize to them in your mind as well. And I'm sorry to so-and-so for making a judgment against them. They did not deserve that from me. So whatever your reason was for judging that person, whether you're consciously aware of it or not, because you might not even be consciously aware of why you're judging them. You might just be reacting to something that you're not even aware of. And whatever that reason is, by actively apologizing to yourself and to them in your mind, you're overriding that negativity and choosing to be kinder, choosing to be gentler, choosing to be better, choosing to rise above. And that is really key here. And you may notice that it takes a really long time to get good at that. You might catch yourself judging and apologizing and judging and apologizing and judging and apologizing over and over and over again before it starts to become the habit to not judge in the first place. So let's say you catch yourself engaging in negative self-talk. Like, for instance, I'm not good at socializing because I'm awkward, right? So this is a negative self-talk that you're kind of engaging in. I'm not good at socializing because I'm awkward. When in reality, it might be that you think you're awkward, and that's why you're not good at socializing. You might not actually be awkward, and you might not actually be bad at socializing, but you're projecting that onto yourself. You're projecting the idea that you're awkward and that you're bad at socializing onto yourself and to your interactions. So that's having a combined effect on your ability to socialize and on your ability to not feel awkward. So when you notice negative thought patterns like that happening, or negative self-talk like that happening, what I want you to do is first catch yourself, be like, oh, I just had a negative thought about myself, and then counteract that thought. And say to yourself, maybe I'm not awkward, maybe I just feel awkward, and maybe because I feel awkward, I project that onto others. And take away the idea, take away the label that you are awkward. Don't label yourself as anything. Just notice and recognize how you feel can affect the way that you talk to yourself. I'll give you another example. So maybe you say, I'm a bad friend. Maybe you haven't called somebody in a long time, or there's a friend that you haven't been engaging with and you keep thinking about them, but you keep not calling them, and you think, oh, I'm such a bad friend. Stop. Apologize to yourself. I'm not a bad friend. Maybe I'm not a bad friend. Maybe I'm just tired right now and I just don't have the energy to extend myself out to others. And that's okay. I need to take care of me when I need to be taken care of. Right? See, this is what we're doing. We're noticing these negative self-talks or negative, thoughts that pop into our heads about ourselves, and we're stopping. We're apologizing to ourselves for thinking those things, and then we're counteracting them or explaining them away, right? Finding a reason for them. You are not a bad friend. Right? Just because you haven't reached out to somebody, or just because, you have a friend who's upset with you for some reason, maybe because you haven't reached out to them, you're not a bad friend. It's okay to need space from people sometimes. It's okay to have to take time for yourself. You're not, you are not, most of the time, these negative thoughts, they don't really apply to you. You apply them to yourself because of the way that you feel, but they're not true. And that's what I want you to remember. They're not true. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're going to do a practice that's going to help us work on building self-awareness. Yoga is a really great tool for building self-awareness, and if it's something that you want to work on more extensively, then I encourage you to practice yoga more regularly. However, I will say that regular yoga practice is not necessary for building your self-awareness. All you have to do if you want to build your self-awareness is notice what's happening in your mind. Just notice. Notice what's happening when you interact with other people. Notice what's happening when you feel bored. Notice what's happening when you feel excited. Notice what's happening when you feel sad. Notice what's happening when you're doing anything in life, right? And if at any point in time you're like, oh shoot, I've just been kind of like living my life and I haven't been being self-aware, and you want to now create self-awareness, just stop whatever you're doing and repeat to yourself silently in your mind, hello, 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 and observe yourself saying hello to yourself. That's a really great way to just stop and re-engage with your self-awareness, and then set the intention to just be aware as you continue to move through your day. And you'll lose it, it'll go away, because it's very easy to get completely absorbed in our lives that we forget to be aware, right? Because life is really engaging in it, and we've got all of these senses that we're able to engage with the world in, and it makes us get so absorbed that we forget to observe. But anytime you want to, just remember, oh, I'm trying to observe myself, stop, say hello, 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 and then set the intention to continue observing yourself as you move through your day, right? And then with time, you get better and better at it. It's just something that takes time, and all of these practices, all of this work takes time. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes dedication, it takes patience, and so you have to really exercise those things as you move through. Okay, so that's pretty much all I have for this lesson. We are going to dive into the practice that I have planned for you for this to go alongside this lesson. So if you want to go ahead and click into the next video, it's a combined yoga meditation practice, as I said before, that will really help you start to practice working on and noticing what self-awareness feels like. So go ahead and head on over to that next video, and I will see you there.